Bon après-midi, mesdames et messieurs. Buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sang-Hoon Kim, and I'd like to invite you to the International Civil Aviation Organization's 40th Assembly SkyTalks. Now, we're coming to you live, so I'd ask you to please refrain from using your cell phones and put them in vibration mode. We have, over the course of next 2 weeks, 68 presentations from aviation industry professionals. If you have seen all of them, great. If you missed some, then I would invite you to go onto the ICAO channel on YouTube to view the full list. Today, we are going to talk about training tools, more specifically the GAT training tools supporting capacity building. I would like you to welcome Vicky Princz, Instructional Design Specialist. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. Capacity building is one of ICAO's key mandates. And today I'd like to talk to you about how the Global Aviation Training Office, or GAT, contributes to this important goal through the tools and the processes that we use in the way that we design, develop, and deliver competency-based training packages. If you're here, you're already aware of the challenge that we face. There's a forecasted growth in aviation that generates a demand for aviation professionals that currently we project that it's going to exceed the supply. That's why we have to focus on sustainable growth. And sustainable growth relies on the availability of qualified and competent personnel to fill all of the roles associated with the tasks of civil aviation. How is training going to address this challenge or mitigate it? Through the processes that we use, through the standardized approach that we take, so we're able to support the smooth transition of professionals into the roles that they're going to fulfill. Aviation training is considered a support function of ICAO. So I'm going to talk first about how GAT supports capacity building generally, and then I'm going to drill down and talk about how GAT's tools and processes and methodologies that we apply support this goal. Traditional approaches to training focused on individual learning, and this is very useful, but it doesn't address the needs of an organization or the needs of an industry. There are many definitions of capacity building, but what they all focus on is looking at the big picture and preparing for the requirements of the future. Why do we need to focus on capacity building? Well, simply put, given the scale of the challenge that we face, we can't do otherwise. Unless we start preparing for future requirements now, we're not going to meet the anticipated targets. Capacity building is a complex activity with many tasks and many stakeholders, and training doesn't touch on all of them, but it does touch on some of them. The transfer of knowledge, skills, and attitudes, or competencies, to close future gaps, human resource development, and monitoring and evaluating results. This one is particularly critical because as you set your benchmarks and towards capacity building, you're able to monitor that the forecasts are actually accurate and your targets are in line with what they should be. So how do you know if training is actually supporting capacity building? It has to respond to 3 criteria. It has to be anchored in a strategic plan that takes into account future requirements and capacity building. It must be competency-based, meaning it is not focused on knowledge and theory, but more on performance, and it's job-oriented. And finally, it must be standardized in the development and the delivery. If this is the case, then the trainees who are taking these courses have shared competencies that are recognized and transferable, which allows for a more mobile workforce. ICAO has launched the concept of aviation training intelligence. Now, what this means is we are now, as you know, inundated with data. We have more access to more information than we ever have. But what we need to be able to discern is what of all of this data is actually decision useful. What part of this information can actually contribute to capacity building and developing a strategic plan. This model has 8 elements, and I'm going to touch on each of them, but it's important to note that each one of these elements has tools and methodologies associated with it that you can use if you want to use it in your own organization to develop your own strategic plan. And we do have a course, Managing Aviation Training Intelligence, that does speak to this. So the first element is the Implement Solution Center, or iSTAR, which gives you data subsets that allow you to understand what the situation is today, the current situation in aviation. You could look at ICAO Data Plus, and you can filter it to see what types of aviation forecasts will apply to your situation, to your environment, your region, your organization. There's the TPAMS, which is our TrainAir Plus electronic management system, which hosts our courses. So should you already have your training needs analysis done and you know what you need, you could look there and determine if there's a course that already exists that will meet your need. There's the Training Needs Analysis web-based tool that will walk you through a training needs analysis from beginning to end. If you didn't find your course on TPAMS, you could look at the Aviation Training and Education Directory, which has further course offerings that might meet the needs that you determined. Should there not be a course that meets your identified needs, there's the instructional systems design methodology that we use, and you could apply it to develop your own course or collaborate with us and develop it. If the type of information or intelligence that you're seeking is about a course that you already have, but you'd like to measure the impact it has on the trainees that you have sent there, you could perform a post-training evaluation. And finally, there's human resource development. You can ensure that the objectives and the strategies that are being applied in your organization do actually align with the strategic, with the master plan and the strategic plan. Now, any one of these elements will not allow you to create a strategic plan, but if you're continually looking at the landscape and surveying all of these 8 elements, then that in fact can help you develop the aviation training intelligence to intelligently move forward and create a strategic plan that aligns with capacity building goals. So here we're looking at it from a bigger picture. What I'm going to do now is we're going to drill down and look at the methodologies, the tools, and the processes that we use to implement some of these ideas. So we're going to look at the Training Needs Analysis tool, the Instructional Systems Design methodology for competency-based training, TPAMS, which we mentioned, the Standardized Qualification Procedures, and the Standardized Post-Training Evaluation. So if you are not sure of what your training needs are, or you think you know what they are but you want to validate them, you could use ICAO's web-based tool, which will walk you through the training needs analysis from beginning to end. It begins with an organizational performance analysis, and you determine what the performance problem is, identify the symptoms of the problem, try to identify the cause of the problem and how it impacts the organization. Following this, you do a job analysis, gather data from stakeholders and ensure that the data that you've corrected is accurate and the criticality of the performance problem is identified. And finally, you take a look at all of this data and determine if there's the solution will be a training solution or otherwise. The last step of the training needs analysis process is the generation of a report that summarizes the information that was collected during the process, and it allows you to determine if there is already an existing course in the ICAO course catalog that will fulfill the needs that you've identified in the training needs analysis, or you could peruse the Aviation Training Education Directory, or should there not be an existing course, you might want to develop your own course. And if you were to choose this, you would use the Instructional Systems Design methodology. This is the methodology that we use to develop courses as well. It's competency-based, which simply means that we identify a performance gap, and then we identify the ideal performance, and we try to ensure that the gap is closed. It's 3 stages. There's the analysis phase where you gather information and you determine through your analysis what the performance gap is and what your ideal job performance is. The second stage is the design and development of the how you're going to manage that gap. So you determine the knowledge, skills, and attitudes, the competencies that need to be addressed. And here we have stage 3 as evaluation, which is a little bit misleading. One of the hallmarks of the instructional systems design methodology is that evaluation is ongoing. It's integrated into every stage, which is one of its strengths. But we do have at the end, when stage 2 is completed, we have a dry run, which we call a validation delivery, to ensure that the course that we developed or that we developed in collaboration with others, or that was developed by others, it does indeed meet the performance objectives that are set out at the end. We take feedback from that and loop it back up into course design to address any weaknesses that we find. And another element of evaluation is the trainees evaluation. We do use the Kirkpatrick model, so we survey the trainees on what they think of what their reaction is to the training, if they liked it, if they learnt anything, if they anticipate that it will change their performance, and then finally there's the evaluation on if the performance change has an impact on the organization. The TPAMS is our Train Air Plus electronic management system. It's available 24 hours a day, and it serves a number of functions. One of the functions is we do develop the methodology. The methodology you just saw is reflected in TPAMS, so it's a way to keep us honest. We follow the steps that you follow and the stages that you saw are also reflected within TPAMS. And additionally, this electronic management system allows a host of other features. We can share training packages. There's a roster of available validators and instructors within it. It produces course certificates, and it dispatches trainee questionnaires. Another element of standardization that we apply is in the qualification procedures that we have for course developers, subject matter experts, course validators, and instructors. The application process for every one of these roles is identical, is standardized right across, and having this process allows us to have a roster, as I mentioned, so that this supports capacity building, because should there be a need for a subject matter expert in a particular area, we will already have that roster ready. I'd mentioned that evaluation is one of the hallmarks of the instructional systems design methodology. We also, in addition to the evaluation that trainees fill out while they're on course, they are also issued a questionnaire 3 months or 6 months following the training to self-evaluate how well they did and if their performance changed due to the training that they got. Additionally, their supervisor will be sent a similar questionnaire to determine if they have noticed a change in the performance of their direct report as well. We do use 15 indicators using 6 criteria in 2 areas of evaluation, and this allows us to measure an impact quotient, so we can determine exactly how useful the training was on performance. And should there be lags anywhere, it gives us the opportunity to address this and loop back to the course and improve if we notice patterns. So it's very useful for us. In addition to all of these standardized tools that we went through, ICAO also develops training competencies through specific courses for training developers, instructors, managers, and validators. There are a number of benefits, as you can imagine, of the standardization of the process. The courses are standardized. It results in enhanced performance on the job. It reduces duplication of effort, and there's a focus on collaboration. So as we face this challenge that we addressed at the beginning of the growth of aviation, if we move towards capacity building collaboratively, we're most likely to get the most positive results. I've touched on a number of items, but I'm sure if you would like to know more, you're more than welcome to meet our implementation team. They have a booth just outside this area. You're welcome to discover more about our programs, schedule bilateral meetings with TCB and GAT senior management, and provide us with feedback to help us improve our services. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As Vicky mentioned, you can go visit them at the Trainer Plus booth just outside. You can also go to the ICAO site on YouTube for more information, or you can contact via email mcr@icao.int. Thank you.
Thank you.